Sewing is my passion. It has been for as long as I can remember. It is what excites my enthusiasm and nourishes my soul. I'm going to start by talking a bit about my early years and the ways in which my passion was and wasn't nurtured. Then I will talk about how I have nurtured this passion in myself and how I try and nurture this passion in my children. I learned to sew on a sewing machine when I was 4 years old. As the story goes, my mom was teaching my older sister to sew. Since this was before iPads, VCRs, and even regular children's programming on TV, my 4-year-old self had nothing better to do at the time, so I was watching. At some point, my mom and sister took a break, and I seized the opening. My mom came back a while later and found me sewing. She said she would have told me I wasn't old enough, but she didn't have the heart to, since I was doing such a good job. I have forever been grateful for my mother's decision in that moment. She recognized my competence and didn't interfere with me following my path, even though most would say it was not appropriate for a 4-year-old to be using a treadle sewing machine. I made my first dress for myself when I was in kindergarten. I would have made one sooner, but that was the first time I had a piece of fabric large enough. My mom had given me a piece of acetate taffeta to use as a tablecloth for my doll table. My parents were out of town when I made this first dress. I wanted to wear it to school, but the babysitter hesitated. The quality of sewing was not exactly professional. Would my mother be upset if I wore such a thing to school? Again, I am forever grateful for her tact. She said I shouldn't wear it to school because there's really more of a party dress. I was annoyed, but my sewing confidence was unscathed. When my mom got back in town, I wore the dress to school. When I was 7, I announced that I wanted to be a seamstress. I was told by my parents in no uncertain terms that if I became a seamstress, I would end up in a sweatshop. I should stay in school. My inner child listened to my parents. I proceeded to spend the next 25 years trying to not work in the sewing and design fields. I did continue sewing, however. The summer after 3rd grade, my mom started buying fabric for me to sew my own clothes. She later told me she had me start with summer clothes, so if they didn't turn out well, not as many people would see them. I apparently passed because I then started to sew all my own clothes. My skills progressed well, and by the time I cared how my clothes looked, they were looking really good. When I was 12 years old, I entered a winter coat I had made for myself in our large county fair. My age was inadvertently covered up, and the judges were rather distressed when they revealed names and realized that the grand prize in the senior division had been awarded to a junior division entrant. I was in middle school when fashion jeans first came on the market. It was star jeans with a star on the right back pocket. Spending that kind of money on jeans was simply not what my family did. I felt so left out. So I copied the star jeans. I realized that I couldn't do an exact copy of the star jeans, and I didn't want them to look counterfeit. So I made jeans that had the same look and feel, the same cut, and the same style of stitching in general, but I put an arrow on the right back pocket instead of a star. One day, one of my teachers noticed my jeans and asked if arrow jeans were the new thing. I backed off a bit on sewing during my high school years. At that point, I had a job and the money to spend on clothes like everyone else had, and I was busy with sports, music, and college prep classes. I did, however, use some of that money I earned to buy a sewing machine. I knew I would be leaving home soon, and I couldn't imagine living without a sewing machine. Although I brought my sewing machine with me when I went to college, I didn't sew much the first couple of years. Junior year, however, the stress of not nourishing my passion became too great. I took a year off and I worked in a fabric store. I had a blast. But then it was time to finish my degree. I graduated from MIT, got a job on Wall Street, and came home and sewed until 1 o'clock in the morning. It nourished my soul. Eventually, I went to law school. It was only as I was finishing law school that the deep part of me that was trying to please my parents and do something real with my life was finally satisfied. Only then did I start taking fashion design classes at FIT. Now that was quite a change from MIT and NYU Law. For me, a wonderful change. My night school fashion design classes kept me sane while I worked as a big firm New York City corporate lawyer. A year after I graduated from FIT, my life again fell out of balance. My soul was not being nurtured, and I was burning out. I stopped practicing law and started following my passion. At this Mother's Day tea, I think it is also apropos to consider how we parent the passions in our children. As I said, I am so grateful that my mother did not interfere with me sewing at a young age. I am also grateful that the babysitter did not tell me the dress I had made wasn't sewn well enough to wear to school. On the flip side, I suffered for years from the well-intentioned advice that a career in sewing would mean life in a sweatshop. We need to be aware of how what we say can impact the budding passions in our children. Another thing that saddens me is that there are no photographs of my early sewing. There are no pictures of 4-year-old me at the Truttle sewing machine, 6-year-old me in the dress I made, 12-year-old me in the grand prize coat, or 14-year-old me in the Aero jeans. I've talked with my mom about this, and she said she hadn't taken pictures of these things because they were just so normal. I try to remember this and take photos of the normal things my kids do, the everyday futzing around that might end up being their adult passions. I have a middle school daughter who is an incredible artist. One day when she was in preschool, she adamantly wanted me to take a picture of her while she was painting. As I recall, I was in the middle of cooking dinner. I'm so glad I took the time to take that picture. I treasure it. I often think of Kahlil Gibran's poem, Children. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are set forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, he also loves the bow that is stable. I try very hard to nurture the passion in my kids. In general, I think I do a pretty good job, but I have my moments. When the career assessment that my oldest son did suggested he might want to be a video game designer, I admit that I was not immediately enthusiastic. But then I took a deep breath and considered, why not? His life will be in the house of tomorrow, which I cannot visit, not even in my dreams. I ask you today, do you have enough passion in your life? Is your soul nurtured on a daily basis? If not, look back to what you liked to do when you were 6. Is there some nascent passion that could be resurrected? Explore without commitment. Allow yourself to play. Live passionately. Thank you.